Have you ever had the feeling that someone was watching you? A chilling sensation creeping up your spine, making the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Most of the time, we brush it off as paranoia. But what if one day you turned around and there really was something there? Something that shouldn't be? This is the story of Ethan Cooper, a young photographer whose solo camping trip in the summer of 2016 turned into something far more sinister. What happened to Ethan that night remains one of the most terrifying and unexplained disappearances in modern history. Ethan was 28 years old, an experienced nature photographer who often spent days in the wilderness capturing breathtaking landscapes. He had camped alone dozens of times before, always enjoying the serenity of being far away from civilization. But that summer, he chose a location that would mark the last time anyone saw him. Deep in the forests of British Columbia, he found what seemed like the perfect campsite, a remote clearing by a lake surrounded by dense trees. No cell service, no people. Absolute silence. He pitched his tent, set up his camera equipment, and spent the day exploring, completely unaware that he was not as alone as he thought. As night fell, the peaceful sounds of nature faded. The crickets stopped chirping. The air grew unnaturally still. Around 11:30 p.m., as Ethan sat by his campfire, he heard a sound, a soft rustling in the trees nearby. At first, he assumed it was a deer or some small animal. But then, footsteps, heavy, uneven, human. He grabbed his flashlight and shone it toward the trees. Nothing, just the darkness stretching beyond the beams of light. But something felt wrong. The air was thick, oppressive, making his skin prickle. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. After a while, the sound stopped. Convinced it was just his imagination, Ethan returned to his tent. But he wasn't alone. The next morning, Ethan reviewed footage from the motion sensor camera he had set up outside his tent for wildlife photography. And that was when he saw it. At exactly 11:32 p.m., the camera had detected movement. The footage showed a figure standing at the edge of his campsite. It looked human, but distorted. The body was elongated, the limbs unnaturally thin. The face was blurred, as if the camera itself refused to capture it clearly. The most horrifying part: the figure didn't move. It stood completely still for over 5 minutes, watching. And then, in an instant, it was gone. Ethan's hands trembled as he rewound the footage, watching the video again and again. He knew he had to leave. He hurriedly packed up his things, ready to abandon the campsite. But before he could finish, a sound came from deep within the forest. A scream. Not a normal scream. It sounded layered, like multiple voices crying out at once. Then came the footsteps, running. Whatever was out there, it was coming. Fast, Ethan bolted to his car, throwing his gear inside. He turned the key. The engine wouldn't start. Heart pounding, he glanced at his rearview mirror. And that was when he saw it. The figure was now standing just a few feet behind his car. He barely had time to process what he was seeing before there was a sudden, deafening bang against his car window. His breath caught in his throat. The thing had no face. Panicking, Ethan grabbed his two-way radio, his last chance for help. He pressed the button, his voice shaking as he called out, "Hello? I need help. Someone's here. I'm at..." Static. Then a whisper, "Can you see me?" The radio died, and then silence. The next morning, when search teams arrived, they found Ethan's car parked exactly where he left it, door wide open. His tent was still intact, his belongings untouched. His camera equipment, his phone, his wallet, all there. But Ethan was gone. Investigators searched the area for weeks. They found only one clue: long, dragging marks in the dirt leading away from the car, disappearing into the forest. Police analyzed the footage from Ethan's camera. The strange figure was there, but its face was unidentifiable. No one could explain what it was. Some believed he was attacked by an animal, but there was no blood, no struggle, no evidence of a bear or cougar. The case was officially labeled as a missing persons file, though law enforcement admitted they had no logical explanation. To this day, hikers who visit the area report hearing whispers in the woods at night. Some say they see a figure standing among the trees, too blurry to make out. And a very few, claim that when they listen carefully, they hear a voice asking, "Can you see me?"